Hello, I am John Silver and welcome to another painting video. In the previous video I showed you how to create an interesting background for your paintings using decoupage on a canvas panel. In this video I will show you how to do a painting over the top of that decoupage and how to allow certain areas show through in order to create some interest in the background. This time I'm going to do a horse painting using acrylics. The colours I am using are burnt sienna, yellow ochre, ivory black, phthalo blue and titanium white. So, I have just knocked in the basic outline and shape of a horse, and I'm using some basic tones just to define its shape and decide where my contrast is going to be. The painting is basically going to be a series of layers of paint, very many layers of paint. Most paintings are done a la prima, which means all in one go, using thick, opaque paint. Using layers does not use thick paint, but somewhere in between thick and a glaze. Of course, thick, opaque paint and very thin washes of glazes are and can be used. But the majority of the painting will be utilising a painting consistency of somewhere in between. When doing an alla prima painting, the colour, tone and vibrancy are of the utmost importance, and you generally need to be meticulous in your colour choice before you apply the paint. Using this method of layering, it is not as important as the colours can be changed layer by layer. For instance, if you find the colours are too warm in a particular area, then a cooler colour can be applied over the top once that layer is dry. I use many different techniques to apply my paint. Of course, the paintbrush is of prime importance and is used most of the time. However, I also use scrapers, painting knives, pieces of cloth or kitchen roll, and of course my fingers. Fingers can be one of the most useful of painting tools, not only to apply the paint, but also to smooth areas or smudge and smear, your fingers being so much more sensitive than any brush or tool. Using fingers then obviously becomes a very tactile way of painting. You begin to actually feel the painting and the paint on your skin, and this then becomes a much more personal way of painting and will enable you to almost become part of the painting. Once the paint is laid down in this method, you can then scratch and scrape into the paint to create interesting marks. These scrapes and scratches can be done using tools or even your fingernails. I should also point out that before I start painting, I always use a barrier cream on my hands and fingers. Then at the end of a painting session, I can wash my hands and the paint is easily removed. Without the cream, the paint will take quite a bit of scrubbing to remove. Trust me, I have had to do that many times and it is not nice or easy. Get into the habit of using a barrier cream before you even pick up a brush. You can also see here that I am using a few stencils, which I apply using a damp sponge, with just a hint of paint, not too much. These are just to create even more interesting patterns and shapes within the background. You can also smudge, smear and scrape these while they are still wet. I also use a very fine mist spray of water every now and again over the painting, just to keep certain areas wet so that I can adjust them accordingly, whether that means blending, smudging, scraping or just moving the paint around in general. At this point in the painting I am redefining the contrast so that I can enable parts of the horse to stand out against the background. This I do by either lightening the background or darkening the horse. Using this dark against light principle will enable the horse to really stand out. This principle and technique of dark against light was mastered by Rembrandt, who used it to amazing effect. You should always be aware of this principle in your paintings. The same can also be applied to colour. Using warm colour against a cool colour will again create a beautiful contrast. Now you will also see that for the most part I'm using a large brush. I use a large brush so as not to get too bogged down with detail at this stage of the painting. I want to keep it loose and expressive, concentrating on using my arm instead of my wrist when using the brush. Also, holding the brush halfway down the handle, or sometimes at the very end of the brush, you will find that the brush strokes automatically become more loose and expressive. Only hold the brush closer to the bristles when you want to apply detail, as this will give you more control when painting finer and smaller areas. But whenever possible, use a larger brush that you think is necessary. As an experiment in painting looser, you should try having a go with just large brushes and hiding your smaller ones away somewhere. Believe me, you will soon begin to love the freedom larger brushes will give you. When I apply the paint over the decoupage area in the background, you will see that I smudge, smear and scrape certain areas so that the shapes and patterns can still show through. Then, when it is dry, I can apply another layer of paint and again smudge, smear and scrape. After several layers have been applied, you will see how this creates even more interest. Also, if you add white to a colour, even a transparent colour, it will become naturally opaque. These will obviously cover up any underlying layers or patterns, so the smudging, scratching and scraping technique is more important than ever. It is a very useful exercise to practice this technique on a scrap of paper. Just have fun. Play with your paint and see what happens. Not only will you find interesting things happening, but also you will notice how much joy and fun you are having. Having fun painting is of prime importance. This is something that I somehow lost after decades of painting, especially when doing my photorealist style paintings. When we were children, we don't know about the different techniques and styles of paintings. We just have fun splashing the paint around. We should never forget that feeling. Try to keep your childish nature as you grow older and more experienced in painting. Of course, keeping that childish nature does not only apply to painting. I try to keep my inner child available at all times. Life is too short to be serious all the time, and where is the fun in that? Anyway, back to the painting. Keeping the painting in a loose style allows you, the artist, to direct the viewer's attention to where you want them to look. This is done by applying the detail only to the parts of the painting that is of the most importance. In this case, I have decided that the important areas are around the eye and muzzle of the horse. So that is where I will go down to a smaller brush and apply the relevant details. You will find that in most cases of painting animals or wildlife, that the eyes and mouth are generally the areas of importance, and this is where the viewer's eyes will tend to concentrate. When a viewer looks at a subject, in this instance a painting, their eyes naturally wander all over the canvas, but you will find that their gaze will tend to concentrate time and time again on certain areas. By applying the detail where you want to, you will naturally direct the viewer to those areas. This direction of the viewer's gaze can also be controlled using colour. This is particularly useful in landscape painting, and I will do another video showing this. Constable put this to good use when he used a little splash of red within his landscape paintings. Your eyes naturally go to the red splash of paint. Painting layers in acrylic paint is so much easier than oil paint, as you have to wait for such a long time for each layer to dry with oils. It would take you weeks, if not months, to do a painting similar to this in oils. With acrylics, however, it can all be done in just a few hours or less. In fact, I have found that the most useful tool at the artist's disposal when using acrylics is the hairdryer. Yes, a hairdryer. A quick blast of hot air will soon dry a layer of paint, and you are then ready to immediately apply the next layer. The debate between acrylic and oil paint has been raging for decades, ever since the acrylic paint was invented. This is something that I won't delve into here, but I will do another video on how to make acrylics behave and look like oil paints. I am now approaching the final stages of this painting, and as you can see, I am constantly redefining the contrasts of the horse. Also, I am re-establishing the darker and lighter areas, making sure that the dark areas are truly as dark as I want them to be, and that the light areas are as bright as I need them to be. All that now remains is for me to put in the little details using a smaller brush this time, remembering that it is these little details that will be the centre of attention to the viewer, so these are of the utmost importance. Depending on your style, of course, you can make these details as realistic or impressionistic as you prefer, as long as they are more detailed than the rest of the painting. All that now remains is to sign and date the painting. Always include a date, as it will forever be your record of when you produced the painting. One or two little details left to do, such as the short hairs under the chin, and there it is, finished. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to any comments you might have or any questions I may be able to help you with. In the meantime, I hope to see you on the next painting video.